Good day, everybody. This is Dr. Jeff Leeson, your facilitator for managerial economics, beginning August 21st in the online campus. This video is meant as an introduction. I think it'll take about 10 or 15 minutes. I want to go through the course mechanics. I'd like to go through the content we'll be covering in each module from an overview perspective. This video will be followed in each module by 3 to 4 videos of specific content. I always like to start by talking about why a particular course is in the curriculum in this MBA program. What we're going to be looking at is business decision making using economics as the foundation or the background theory. We're not going to look at things from a strictly financial perspective. We won't look at business decision making from a marketing perspective. We're going to be looking at business decision making from an economic perspective, and many tools that you can take away from this course to make better business decisions. Not only better business decisions, but personal decisions as well. For instance, we'll be sharing with you what I call a tool to predict the future in terms of chosen career fields, and I'll share a personal experience about that. A little about me. Looks like I go to school all the time. Actually, no. I just got my doctorate in management about 3 years ago at the age of blankety blank. From a career perspective, I'm in my third career. I call my first career corporate America. I was a senior manufacturing executive in corporate America. Then I began a small business career, starting up or being a co-founder of a small business. I'll share that with you in a few minutes. You might have heard of it. And then for the last 10, 12 years, I've been teaching exclusively. I teach all kinds of business courses, accounting, finance, economics, statistics, capstone courses, marketing, public relations, strategy, both at graduate and undergraduate levels. I use a dinosaur not because of my receding hairline, but because, as I said a moment ago, I'm from the manufacturing sector. I'll be curious to read your bios, your introductions, about your backgrounds, and if I have any brethren from the manufacturing sector in the class. These are companies I was vice president of, or in the case at the bottom was the company that I was the co-founder of. If any of you belong to a health club or a fitness club, I'm guessing you've seen the brand name Cybex. And if you belong to a cutting-edge fitness club, you saw the brand name Free Motion at the bottom of the screen. I was the co-founder of that company. In fact, if you have Free Motion equipment in your 24-Hour Fitness or YMCA or Gold's Gym, and you look at the back of the equipment and you see a serial number, if that serial number is under 2,000, I might have built it before we started hiring employees. What to call me? Here's 5 or 6 choices. The choice at the bottom is what my son calls me. Teach is what some of my community college students call me. My preference is Jeff, but if you want to use any of the other titles, that is fine. This is an online course. Communication is vital, and the more informal we can be, I find the better our communication will be. Here are the 7 modules, sort of the headline of the 7 modules that we'll be going through in the course. Module 1 is about revisiting the laws of supply and demand. I understand most of you have taken microeconomics, I believe. So this will be a little bit of review, but we'll get into more depth than you might have gotten. Also in Module 1, we'll be discussing elasticity of demand. Is it better if we want to increase revenue to raise prices or lower prices? If a salesperson or a sales manager is behind their quota and the CEO of a company asks them what they intend to do about it, in my 40 years of business experience, 99% of them would say, let's have a sale, Well, that isn't necessarily true, and it all depends upon the elasticity of demand of that product. If you've taken management accounting or managerial accounting, you probably heard about or used the break-even formula. We're going to take that formula and expand it into what I call the profit formula, and it will probably be the most valuable tool you will not only get from this course, perhaps from your entire MBA degree. And I'll show you how powerful that is in several places through the course. In Module 3, we'll be talking, so Module 2 is about costs, the profit formula, understanding cost behavior. Module 3 will discuss how we make business decisions dependent upon how much competition we face. You may have heard the term market structure. Market structure refers to, are we a monopoly? Do we face many competitors, which might be perfect competition? Or are we in one of the two forms of competition in between those two extremes? Our pricing strategy, our marketing strategy, our advertising strategy depends in great part about what market structure we compete in. That will be Module 3. I need to correct myself. I missed one line in this summary of the module, so let me briefly repeat myself. My apologies. Understanding and going into the law of supply and demand and elasticity is Module 1. Module 2 is about forecasting consumer demand. You may have heard of the technique called regression analysis. We'll be covering that. You'll learn that statistical concept in Module 2 to help forecast consumer demand and why is forecasting an important topic for a business manager. Module 3 is about costs and using the profit formula. Module 4 is about market structure and how strategies depend upon how much competition we face. And now we're back on track here. I understand that not too many of you have taken macroeconomics, which is about the overall economy, how our economy fits into the global economy. That'll be Module 5. If you are interested in what our politicians talk about, what you hear on news programs, Module 5 and macroeconomics will be of great interest to you. Module 6, monetary policy, the Federal Reserve. How does the Federal Reserve make decisions? And more importantly, how do decisions of the Federal Reserve impact your business decision making? And finally, the last module, Module 6. Module 6 will be studying exchange rates, the international impact on business, changing exchange rates, and the importance of exchange rates. Finally, Module 7 we'll be looking at sort of an overarching perspective on making better business decisions, and we'll be falling back again on the profit formula that I mentioned in red here. We'll be using that again and again. It's a very, very powerful tool. Let's start going through the course mechanics. If you've taken other online courses, which I believe all of or most of you have, each week, each module, there's what I call a pre-test, a non-graded pre-test called an opening exercise, an online 5, 6, 7 question pre-test to see where you are. For each module, there's an online mastery exercise. It'll be a many question exercise, probably 10 to 15 questions. That one is graded. Every module, there's a discussion board, which requires your response and a substantive response to at least one classmate. There is what's referred to as a portfolio project. It'll be team-based. We'll be assigning teams of 2 people to each team. Hopefully, we have an even number of students in the class. It is graded, and that's in Module 7. To make sure you're on track and so you don't get overloaded in Module 7, in Modules 1, 3, and 5, we have sort of interim assignments or updates to make sure you're on track and for me to provide constructive feedback. Those would be non-graded. In weeks 2, 4, and 6, there are critical thinking exercises These are individual that require, in most cases, calculations and what they're titled, critical thinking exercises that test your understanding of the concepts. In terms of me transferring knowledge to you, helping you gain knowledge, we have, of course, the textbook, which is listed in the syllabus. Each module, I'll have an opening video. It'll be much shorter than this one. And then within each module, there'll be probably 3 or 4 individual, what I call topical videos on a specific topic. Will likely help you with the specific assignments that week. Very, very detailed. And I'll be providing what I call lecture materials, links, videos, articles that I think are useful, documents I've created, as well as PowerPoints. And hopefully that'll help transfer knowledge from my scrambled brain on the left to your more orderly brain on the right. Okay, this is an aside. I don't want you to leave and get a cup of coffee, but this is important, and you'll see why in a minute. Very early in my career, in fact, my first corporate America job back in the early 70s, I worked for a flat glass manufacturer. You can see on the screen the sheet of glass as it's rolling down the conveyor. This was a huge factory. We had about 500 people, operated 24/7. And if you know anything about the glass industry, it never shut down. 24/7, forever. A buddy of mine was in charge of one of the glass producing lines. I was in charge of the other. For whatever the reason, my glass producing line was not doing very well, and this glass you see coming out of the conveyor line was being crushed due to defects, bubbles, little stones in the glass, unacceptable quality. This didn't go on for a few minutes or a few hours. This went on for about 7 days. Now keep in mind the size of this company, the size of this factory. Every night we got a railroad train filled with raw materials. We were producing 600 or 700 tons a day of glass. And on my line, the line I was responsible for, we were crushing the product 24/7 for 7 days. Meanwhile, my buddy, whose desk was 5 feet away from mine, he was in charge of another glass production line. He was producing high quality glass. Everything was great. After 7 days, my boss called me into the office and said, "What's up?" And I said, "We're still crushing glass." He said, "Have you asked your buddy who sits 5 feet away from you for help?" And like a dummy, I said, "No." So what's the learning exercise, the takeaway from this? Your boss in the private sector rarely cares if you are the answer man, just so you can find an answer to the problem. If you need help, ask for help. In the private sector, I've called up people at competitors to get help, and they've done the same thing. I give you my phone number for you to use it. If you're stuck on something, if you can't figure out what to do, if you can't figure out where to start, please call me. I'm up till probably 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. When you need help, ask for help. There is, as I said 10 minutes ago, an overlap of this course with other courses you're taking or have taken. Clearly, there's an overlap with both microeconomics and macro. There's a clear overlap with managerial or cost accounting, if you've taken that. And this will overlap with some of the marketing techniques you might be using at your place of work or that you've learned about in school. With this slide, I'm now beginning to go through the module by module takeaways or headlines. I'm not going to go into great depth, but this is just to give you a sampling or feel for what each module will cover. Module 1 will answer questions like, why does the law of demand make sense? We all know what the law of demand says, but why does it make sense? Why does the law of supply make sense? I'll share with you what I call predicting the future. If we understand supply and demand curves and what causes them to shift. We can apply this to your personal career choice and predict the future for that career choice. And as I said in my opening video, we'll talk about elasticity of demand, especially important to marketing or salespeople in terms of raising prices or lowering prices. Module 2 will be discussing the importance of forecasting future demand, consumer demand, if you're in a business-to-consumer business or in a business-to-business kind of industry. Why it's important to predict future demand, and then the technique known as regression analysis as one of the methods to in fact predict future demand. When you learn this regression analysis tool, you'll be able to use this in many, many other applications. This is normally found in a statistics course. You'll be learning about it in this course. Module 3, this will bring back memories if you've taken cost or managerial accounting. We'll be talking at length and in detail about costs, cost classification, and cost behavior. We'll cover how to determine the optimum level of output. If you talk to a business manager, particularly a small business, they'll say the more business we do, the more profits we make. And that isn't necessarily true. We'll talk about how to determine the real cost of an hour of overtime, what the accounting department would say and what the economist would say. You'll have to decide which is the better perspective. That segues into the next one. Should we make decisions based on accounting type information or in some other way, perhaps using marginal analysis? I should have put this next one at the top. Why is understanding cost behavior important? And as I promised, we'll be deriving what I refer to as the expanded profit formula. If you've seen the break-even formula or the break-even analysis, we'll start with that and come up with a much more powerful tool. Module 4 is anything and everything to do with market structure. How much competition do I face? There's 4 types of market structure. Monopoly is one extreme, perfect competition is the other. For some reason, when asked, most students say their company competes in perfect competition. Well, that isn't likely the case. We'll talk about the pros and cons of each of the 4 market structures. Most students think being a monopolist is heaven. That isn't necessarily true. We'll talk about strategies, both pricing strategies and non-price strategies, depending upon what market structure you compete in. Module 5, this is the one that interests me the most, based on my own personal research. We'll talk about macroeconomics, our overall economy, the indicators of health of our economy, like the inflation rate, the unemployment rate, and most importantly, predicting the impact on your business from changes in fiscal policy, changes in monetary policy. I'll share with you an excellent website to find trends in all the macroeconomic indicators, the metrics of how our economy is doing. Module 6 will weave the international component into better business decision making. We'll talk about the continuum of different alternatives we have as a business to engage in the globalized economy, from sourcing supplies or services globally to the perhaps more lucrative strategy of selling internationally, globally. Specifically, we'll be talking about exchange rates, why they're important, what causes them to change, and how that changes your business decision making. We'll talk about how fiscal policy that may be designed to help grow our economy could cause problems from an exchange rate perspective and hurt an individual business. And finally, and this is the first time I'm showing this to you, we'll bring everything together to understand how an understanding of economics can help predict the future. In red, you see what I refer to as the expanded profit formula, and we'll cover how very powerful a tool this is for any kind of business. With an understanding of this profit formula, we could have predicted General Motors' bankruptcy. Not a surprise. We also could predict what they did after the bankruptcy. to turn them from being in the red for 10 years to being in the black. That gives you a sort of a short capsule of each of the 7 modules. The next videos you see will be 2 or 3 specific short videos dealing with 2 or 3 specific concepts in Module 1. And we'll do the same thing for Modules 2 through 7. They'll be shorter videos so as not to put you to sleep on specific content areas in each module.